service. I don't know that that will service, and it's all funding. It's all the funding issue. Territory that was covered by the density of the visa area. Right now, we base all of our deployment models off of just the property insurance association of the visa. So that right now we have a class 1 fire insurance possible driven by PIL based on our water supply, based on our public education efforts, based on our communication system. It's a number of factors. But our deployment is based on PIL. So right now with our line of government coverage, all of the requirements, there's a small sliver of a gap that area so it's gonna go more over there. Trying back in that, it's a sliver back in that. It's outside the coverage, but again, when I say outside the coverage, it's outside of the timeline. It takes us to that. Outside of the requirements. But basically, that's the only doubt in our land. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have more companies. But again, it's a monetary issue because it's very expensive. Our a few years ago, based on we're trying to do it all right now. Regular fire trucks are costing $1 million. Fire trucks are costing $1.5 million to $1.75 million. So it's just the price. It's has to go up to demand. From fire apparatus to right now, it takes 3 years from the time you place the order to the time you will actually get the fire truck. Take up to 4 years. Time you order until we actually do it. Fortunately, the city, when COVID was first hitting, so we heard that apparatus on this for the last couple of years. So we just got an order. This year, we got a couple more apparatus coming this year. And we kind of hit that the order process to where it'll be about 2 or 3 years before we start doing it. But currently, we're in pretty good shape as far as
Superintendent Nelson, can you clarify? Our audience member wants to know what is letter 3, where is letter 3? Those are the questions. And is it true or not true that former mayor got rid of
letter 3 was
all of the letters?
Around West always on right now. Between Chef and music back in there. Yes, under I think it was under the land who they called it the department. Something like that. Couple of companies. Basically, as I said, they basically looked at where they have overlap in the coverage and eliminated all the companies that had overlap in coverage. So right now, we still have coverage in every single area, but we don't have any. That's what we say. We don't have any company coverages. Every time one company moves or goes out of service, it brings a gap in coverage that causes them to live in response time. So you have second question.
You answered it. You were trying to figure out what you answered it. That's because you're good at your job. But thank you for leaving on behalf of the city. This question is for Special Agent. In light of our newly elected president and his executive orders that he's carrying, a lot of them are targeting civil liberties, civil rights. What role does God have to ensure that our civil liberties and our civil rights are not only honored but upheld?
Yeah, great question. I can't speak to the specifics in terms of the president's executive orders. And I won't get into the politics. But when it comes to civil rights, that is something that is part of our mission, one of our priorities, and something that the FBI makes sure to continue to investigate. There are a couple different ways that we engage when it comes to civil rights. You'll hear about United Against Hate as one of the forums that we partner with the Department of Justice, and we do have some members here that were part of the United Against Hate engagements that we've had, as well as the investigation that we do. A lot of what we do, we get involved with either through engagement directly from the community, engagement from other concerned citizens, engagement from people who are referring any potential violations of civil rights or allegations of civil rights. And we take each and every single one seriously, and we investigate each and every single one. So the engagement doesn't change when it comes to violation of civil rights. It's still direct with the FBI, either by calling us, emailing us, engaging directly with any one of our agents, or reaching out to us via any of the mechanisms that I previously put out there. That doesn't change at all, but we are directly involved with investigations of civil rights.
Thank you. This question is for Deputy Chief Nicholas Byrne. With the recent order to deploy ICE to schools, restaurants, and neighborhoods, what are the citizens of New Orleans expected to do in terms of safety and limited trauma for children who we have ICE agents going to their schools to apprehend them?
It's a good question. So first, you should understand that the New Orleans Police Department doesn't enforce immigration law or status enforcement at all. As a matter of fact, we're under a federal consent decree that put in place a policy that we've been under for the last 3 or 4 years that specifically prohibits New Orleans police officers from working with members of call it ICE. I think there's a new word for it now, like HSI, right? Yep. So Homeland Security Investigation. So we're specifically prohibiting our officers from working with HSI and those related agencies, unless it's like a life or death shooting kind of situation, right? But we don't participate in immigration raids, enforcement, or anything of that nature. Generally speaking, to your question, people should remember that the Fourth Amendment still applies, right? So people can't come into your business or your private residence or private areas unless they have a search warrant, and that goes for federal agents, right? There's not a Fourth Amendment exception for HSI agents, right? The New Orleans Police Department also does not transmit who we arrest, like lists of who we arrest, to HSI. Neither does the sheriff's office. Sheriff's Hudson's, detains, we arrest, they detain. And other agencies and other parishes, very close to here, every day send the entire list of who's in their jail to HSI, and HSI can determine who they may want to come and pick up or not. Sheriff Hudson's been very clear that she's not going to do that. We are prohibited by policy from doing stuff. So we also understand, this is kind of a little bit off topic here, but victims of crime, we've done a lot of this work so that folks can feel like they can trust reporting to us. There's U visas and T visas. We have social workers in the districts that if somebody is the victim of a crime, we will help them get a U visa or a T visa, help them through that process. Now, we're not going to get it for them. It's not ours to give out, but we'll certainly help them through the process, give them the documentation that they need so that they can, ensure that their status is protected while they're going through the criminal justice system as a survivor. Because we want people to have the trust in us that we're not going to. And that's why we kind of made this decision years ago that we would just prohibit our officers from working with HSI. That policy's in place. It's a function of the consent decree. And your local police department is a function of your local government. So your local government, that's really where you can have the biggest impact, is that your local governmental leaders set the agenda for us, and then we carry out their orders based on what the community wants. So as long as our community continues to want this, local leaders in place that are supportive of these policies, then the police department will continue to support them as well.
Thank you. Mr. Murray, you are popular today. So I want to thank you in advance for being here. We do know that the Department of Justice just released a report that says the Louisiana State Troopers have a pattern of violating the civil rights of the city. I said that, but the question said, with the DOJ stating there will be no further investigation into the Ronald Green murder, how are the citizens supposed to feel comfortable with the police in light of the Department of Justice saying there's a pattern and practice of civil rights violations being done by the Louisiana State Police?
That's a great question. I think that there's two parts to that. So the DOJ, Department of Justice report was released by the Department of Justice, which are the attorney, the legal piece of which the umbrella that we all fall under. There's a process that they go through in order to determine which cases are prosecuted. And anyone who watches Law and Order, you know, there's two pieces to how we work. There's the investigative piece, there's the prosecutive piece. We are in the investigative piece. We do not determine who gets prosecuted. We present cases to DOJ and to our prosecutors, and then they make the final determination. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't necessarily agree on whether or not a case gets prosecuted, but unfortunately, that's the way the system is built. And there are circumstances, such as the unfortunate circumstance with Mr. Green, where that case was not prosecuted. There's several details with that particular investigation, including details related to the officer that subsequently died during this investigation. So there are specific details. I'm not sure what went into the specifics with the attorneys making the decision not to prosecute. But that is something that we do work with our prosecutors on to ensure that regardless of the outcome, we're going to continue to engage, continue to investigate, receive those cases, put the full weight of our efforts into each and every investigation, and then partner with them to make that determination. But again, we don't make that determination in terms of what goes forward.
Just a point of clarity, he didn't just die. He also spoke of committing suicide
Absolutely.
in the wake of the investigation coming to light, correct?
That's our understanding.
Thank you. And not to leave out Superintendent Nelson, this is your question, because a lot of the heavier questions are for the FBI agent and the deputy chief, but we don't want to leave you out. So this question is, how does your department coordinate with other emergency response agencies during critical incidents like the one we just suffered through with the terrorist attack?
Well, I'm happy to leave the heavy questions to my partners up here, but essentially that's what you see here is kind of how it works, right? Whenever there's a major event such as what happened on Bourbon Street, or even with this recent weather event, we formed what's called a unified command. So at the city level, when you see the press conference, and a lot of times you see myself, the director of Homeland Security, Emergency Preparedness, the police chief, public works, the public safety director, infrastructure, everybody standing up there depending on what the emergency is. Normally prior to that, we just come out of the mayor's briefing where we go around the horn with every single public safety agency. But a lot of people don't realize, appreciate is that the public safety departments can't do our job without the departments that support us, right? So we can't do our jobs without EMD that repairs the vehicles and provides the fuel and keep them running. That's the emergency maintenance division. We can't do our jobs without RTI to make sure the computers are working and the phones are working, right? So all around the board, right? Every department that has any aspect that could be tied into that emergency goes around the board, reaches out on where they are, what they're doing, if they have any challenges or any needs to the departments that may be able to help up and pick up the slack and do that, and then we come out before we brief the public. Now, when it's an emergency such as the Bourbon Street incident, there'll normally be a unified command that may be comprised of police deputy chief, fire deputy chief, EMS deputy chief, all there together, coordinated to make sure that from that public safety aspect, everything is being handled and covered. That we're all on the same page with that operations. And then there's the unified command that is sitting up some of the large incidents like this winter storm, where we're all communicating meeting several times a day just to touch base among the public safety departments to make sure that all of the needs covered and that we're all on the same page.
Thank you. This is a question from the audience. It says, why is state police stopping and arresting people with a concealed carry permit for having a concealed weapon? And arresting them, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit before.
Right.
We don't know the facts of the case. I wish my state police counterparts would come here so they could hear directly from you, so that they could look into it. Right. Unfortunately, without knowing the facts of the case, I can't tell you why somebody did that they did. That doesn't really work for me, right? That's all I got. Yeah, so it would be helpful to have some specifics, right? So when, where, how, or who the person was that was arrested, just so we can look at a record, so we can look up a record to see, all right, Nicholas Gernon was arrested at, Tulane and Broad. You don't have to tell me now, but like to have that information so that I can push that to the state police so that they can look to make sure that their officers are acting appropriately. Yep, I'll give you my email and you can shoot it to me and I can make sure it gets to the right place. So is that fair?
Thank you, Superintendent. Ms. Della-Smith, the independent police monitor, is also with us. You can hear me, Stella, raise your hand. Right here in the building. Stella's here in the building. So if you have any questions for the independent police monitor, she's also. This question is for. It says, I've been reporting with victims of violent crimes in New Orleans for over a year to the FBI, NOPT, and the DA, who remains unresponsive. Who can I contact at the FBI? The perpetrators are known and politically connected. They swatted the victims as Black Panthers, and the FBI, NOPT, and DA refuse to protect the victims.
So I'm not going to speak to the specifics and out the person, but if you can, whoever's wrote the question, you can contact.
You put her name on, not just the.
Okay, yeah, you can come to me directly and get back and give you the right person to speak with.
Thank you. This question is for our Deputy Chief. It's a paragraph, so I'm going to give you a quick version.
Break it up to.
Yeah. This person is a terror reader in the Gernon area since 2005. They're trying to understand, there's some preparations being done for the Super Bowl and to live in for the Super Bowl and to put all these safety precautions in place for the Super Bowl. What happens for our culture bearers and people who make a living in that area on a day-to-day basis, even now and once the Super Bowl leaves?
Yeah, so the gentleman, lady who was a tarot card reader knows that the city has jumped to going back years because tarot card readers are recognized by, I think, civil district court, and it might have been brought up to the fourth circuit, that it's a First Amendment free speech issue, right? So any place that the public's allowed to be, they're going to be allowed to be. Now, if there's some sort of somebody catches flag, like if somebody's being told something they don't think is right, they should ask the just supervisor. That's very easy. Every one of our officers knows you need to talk to a supervisor, no problem. And then the supervisor can come out and assess whether or not that officer is given the right information or the wrong information, because that officer might have the wrong information, which we need to correct, or that officer might be doing the wrong thing, which we definitely need to correct. Either way, if somebody's out there and they're engaged in tarot card reading or any one of the other kind of legally protected First Amendment free speech activities, then their first stop is asking to speak to a supervisor. If they still think that they got wrong, right, the time to litigate the case is not necessarily there on the corner, but there are any number of ways in which you can make your concerns known to the Orleans Police Department. Still isn't it? The Office of Independent Police Monitor has an online anonymous complaint. You can go online and make an anonymous complaint, or if you want an answer, like you're like, I want to know what you're going to do about this, you can put your information in there, and then she will notify the Public Integrity Bureau, which is like our internal affairs. She'll monitor the investigation to make sure that's being handled correctly. You can go straight to PIB, it's a Public Integrity Bureau, making complaints to them online, in person, on the telephone. You can make a complaint to that supervisor that you have to see if you still think that there is something else going on, because the First Amendment is sacrosanct, right? So it is one of those things that we hold sacred, and especially for the terror code, because it's been litigated, right? As long as they're in a public space where the other public is allowed to go and they're not, causing some sort of, so like if you're setting up with tables and chairs and there's a safety issue, well, then we might need to move you to an area that's not a safety issue. It almost becomes on a case by case basis. But if you think that you ever have a concern with how a police officer approached you or dealt with you or handled you, there are a number of mechanisms where you can make complaints known and anonymously. I would suggest if you're going to make a complaint, think really thoroughly about whether you can do so known, right? If you can give your name and information, at the very least, at least to the IPM. That way you can track the outcome of your complaint. Because if you don't tell us who you are, we can't tell you what came out of it. If you do tell us who you are, we'll literally send you letters every few weeks, kind of up. That's not fair. Every few months, updating you on what's going on with the investigation and then the outcome of the investigation.
Thank you. I don't know if we said it, but we do appreciate all of the work that each of you do in service to the community. So thank you. Okay. These questions are technology and innovation questions. How is the department utilizing technology such as surveillance cameras and data analysis tools to enhance public safety? Because we do know there's conversations going around in our city, particular with the IA. We talk about facial recognition, and there's a pushback there. But this question is specific to how are we utilizing technology to make our city.
Technology is a broad subject, right? So I'll just start with surveillance. We stood up a real-time crime center in 2018 or so. I was the captain of the 8th district at the time. We went from a 7% clearance rate on shootings to a 90% clearance rate on shootings. We had substantial drops in violent crimes, but it wasn't just for the quarter, it was for the entire city. When the real-time crime center stood up, there was a real intentionality on the part of the administration at the time to say, this can't just be for the visitors, it's going to be for people that live here and that make this place worth visiting. So the real-time crime center is up and running. We have a number of camera feeds, both from public cameras, the ones that you see out there with the red and blue blinking lights. And if you want to, you can hook your private camera up to the real-time crime center, only like public facing. Like we don't want to see your backyard, but like public facing, like on the sidewalk. If you go to SafeCam Platinum, so if you Google SafeCam Platinum, they'll have information on them how you can actually hook your camera up to the real-time crime center. And this is a really cool piece of technology. When somebody calls 911, a police well, they're not police dispatchers anymore, they're city dispatchers. Because they do police, fire, and EMS, they do us all now. They're typing in what you're saying, right? And they're kind of typing in, 1020 Canal Street. As they're typing it in, the computers have these algorithms that generate basically a message to all the cameras that are in their area to start populating in front of the technicians at the real-time crime center. So oftentimes, before the call is actually dispatched on the radio, the real-time crime center, if there's cameras in the area, and I think they set a radius, it's like 500 or 1,000 feet from the camera. If a call comes in for that area, the cameras that they have technicians watching already start populating. So the technician doesn't have to go and type in 1020 Canal Street. It does it automatically. And that way they can kind of see in real time what's going on, and then kind of tell the officers that are responding, hey, look, the person that was shooting was in a red truck and they just fled north on Canal Street. Or the person that you're looking for, they're on the ground on the northeast corner so that EMS or fire can find them faster, so we can give people the aid that they might need. So technology is a huge swath there. It would take me forever to talk about all the technology that we use, but since you touched on facial recognition, I'll remind you guys that the city council, remember, your local leaders develop the policies that your local police department. So the city council passed an ordinance that severely restricts the use of facial recognition technology. So we don't do it real time. We only do it if it's a known crime and we have no other means of identifying who it is. And then we have to document like all the outcomes on whether when we submitted the facial recognition, we sent it to the state police, to the state fusion center, it's called, whether there was information that got back that helped us lead to an arrest. So we can track whether that facial recognition system is being A, used appropriately, and B, is having negative outcomes to prevent some of the fraud that we've happened in facial recognition. If you look, like the Washington Post did a great series on this about a year or so ago in facial recognition mismatches, right? So we put a ton of guardrails in place to prevent facial recognition mismatches. So the technology is there, but we have severely limited and curtailed its use so that we can make sure that it's not being misused. It's not being misapplied to folks. So we don't use it real time. We're barred by law from doing so. And when we do use it, it's in a very, very narrow parameter.
So a supplemental question is, are you guys partnering with Project NOLA? Because we do know citizens Project NOLA has cameras as well all throughout the city. So is MOPD in partnership with Project NOLA?
Let me define that, right? Partnership, there's no MOU, there's no CEA. What my understanding of what happens is when Project NOLA sees something happening in the street, they will call 911 or call the district and say, hey, look, I've got XYZ going on, right? If a crime happens and Project NOLA cameras were there, they may be proactively, emailing the detectives to say, hey, look, this happened here. If we see a Project NOLA camera, we know that we can email them and say, hey, you have a camera at 1020 Canal Street. Did you look and see if it caught XYZ? So we use Project NOLA, we utilize Project NOLA in the same way we utilize cameras from any other private entity. But there's not like a ring doorbell camera, like a ring doorbell camera, but there's not like a data sharing agreement. There's not like a, some sort of MOU or CEA where we're giving them information, they're giving us information. They use facial recognition, but we don't give them the pictures of, say, like our wanted subjects. What we do is we put out, let's say that you have somebody that's wanted for a shooting. We put it out to everybody via press release. What Project NOLA does, and you guys can do it too, is go online, you can sign up for whatever press release that you want from the city. So if you want all the press releases from NOPD, you can sign up for them. They've signed up for them, they get them, and then they put them into their system, and they run facial recognition. We don't ask them to, and our detectives would be prohibited from using it because of the parameters that were put in place by the City Council in 2018.
So I know that in the past, a lot of people were afraid about the privacy concerns with the crime cameras. I think we've kind of gotten beyond that. Right now, I think everybody now understands that when you step out of the public, you can be recorded, right? Or anywhere you go, somebody can be live streaming, they can be taking a picture of you in public. But I'm kind of a technical, especially when it comes to the drones. So I'm really excited about where the technology is going. They're experimenting right now with semi-autonomous drones for first response. And what excites me about it is the ability to put eyes on things quicker, more safely. Right? So what I mean by that is, so semi-autonomous drone technology that they work with right now is like drones from the program that they can dock themselves, they can take off by themselves, and they can be reprogrammed to go to a site. So right now, like Gernon was talking about, there's a CAD hit on something that all these they can put on a crime camera and everything. With the new drone technology, you'll be able to send a drone to go put out. So you get a report that there's a fire in a location, the drone can be flying ahead of the fire truck to get there more quickly. So if it's not a fire truck, it's not speeding right to the side, it's putting the public at risk. Right? Responding to that call. These calls are not speeding. So there's a lot of new technology that's coming down the pipeline that they're developing right now. It's not ready yet, but we're still working on it. Now, of course, the legal issues, the ethical issues, the permits, all of that, it's not quite worked out yet. Right now, I don't think you can fly beyond line of sight. So a semi-autonomous drone that can take off and fly by itself is not yet. That's where the technology is going. And I see a lot of potential for more efficient response and less listen to the public with first responders. When the drone can get there more safely.
Thank you. So this was another question by the audience, but I have to answer for that. Exhale, right quick. The question says, who appointed the police monitor? And the answer is the local monitor is appointed by the ethics review board. The federal monitors are vendors, so they bid, so they are elected by the city. If that makes sense. Did that answer that person's question?
And DOJ.
And the
DOJ.
Department of Justice, yes. So that's who appoints the police monitor. We're gonna go back to, we do know that, in the wake of the terror attack that we just experienced, there were reports of like random citizens identifying things and then alerting police to those things, like a cooler that was in the water. What criteria should people be looking for when reporting potential threats?
So this is great timing. Just this morning, I filmed a couple of public service announcements, PSAs. Just to clarify a couple things, with the coolers, they were placed on Bourbon Street. However, they were not reported. So multiple people interacted, multiple people saw the coolers, but they did not report it. So why that's concerning is because in an environment where either Super Bowl or Bourbon Street, during Mardi Gras, anything that's happening, it's not out of the ordinary to see a cooler. However, to see an unattended cooler is out of the ordinary. You know, to see an unattended cooler sitting in a place by itself for an extended period of time, it's out of the ordinary. It's not a burden on us, any one of us, to receive a call about a suspicious package, suspicious duffel bag. We would rather you call us, and we'd be wrong than to not call us. In no situation, in this particular situation, several people did interact with it. People were dancing on top of the coolers. People were moving the coolers. These coolers had explosives in them. And so it could have been a situation, depending on the device, where these coolers can go off and can, harm individuals. So it is a concern for us. So when we do these public service announcements, we do educate folks. We just ask folks to take it seriously and just understand that it's not a burden on us. We do receive these calls on a regular basis, and we rather be safe than sorry. All it takes is for us to be right one time that it is, an explosive. We would rather be wrong 1,000 times than a safe device.
Thank you for that. And how can citizens report the suspicious activity to law enforcement? Is it just a 911 call?
911 is the quickest. I would say 911 will get to everyone, every single one of us, including the FBI. So for suspicious devices, anything that we deem to be possibly an explosive, we would send out our bomb techs. Just a little bit of history. All bomb techs in the entire United States are trained in the same place. They're trained in Huntsville, Alabama, by the FBI. Every single bomb tech, regardless of which sheriff's department, police department, federal agency, they are all trained at Huntsville, Alabama. They all receive the same training and expertise. So there is no level where one has more experience than the other. They are all one big gigantic team.
So we should treat like an unattended thing at the airport.
Absolutely.
Makes sense to me. This question is on the psychological support of not only the citizens of the community, but our first responders as well. Are there any resources available for victims and their families to access mental health support in the wake of the terror attack? And for those who witnessed it or had a loved one take part in it, are there mental health supports for not just law enforcement, but just regular citizens who, video of it was circulating all over social media. So even if you clicked on the video, I believe that's Trump. But are there things out there where we can go for resources for mental health support?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll speak to what we have to offer in terms of the Department of Justice and the FBI. So we do have a victim assistance program. That victim assistance program is the very first intake point for any of the resources. So we do have, by statute, we do have we're obligated to provide specific resources to those individuals who are directly involved, and then those who are related to those individuals, and those who are witnessing either on scene, present and injured, or present and non-injured. But it does extend beyond that. So those services are available. So we ask that you reach out to the FBI or reach out to our local partners. We do have each one of our agencies have our own victim witness components with partnerships within our communities that we provide those services for. So I'll pass it to it.
So a lot of our local resources for mental health wellness are really coordinated through the health department. So my suggestion would be, if you don't have, a primary mental health provider, start with the health department. Start with the mental health and crisis intervention, just kind of subcontract of the health department. But if you start with the health department, that's where you can start to connect to a lot of the services that you might need. And then there are also great local services, right? So, that when I was in the captain in New Orleans East, that East Hospital in the corner of the campus, there was an excellent behavioral health clinic, which was basically a mental health clinic, right? For folks that needed mental health care. And it was on a sliding scale. So if you didn't have insurance, which a lot of folks don't have, or even if you have insurance, it's cost prohibitive and it's almost useless to have, right? So a lot of our local clinics, Daughters of Charity, things of that nature, they also have mental health services that are free or low cost. The services are there. And you start to feel like just overwhelmed. Like, what do I do about it? I always say just start at the health department's website, because they're kind of the conduit of all of the local services that might exist.
This